Good day with your major newscast. I am Jessica Daw. First with the highlights. A Brazilian company has been selected to construct the first leg of the Linden to Lethem Highway. Guyana's service commissions may be appointed by this month end when a new opposition leader is expected to be in place. And in the region, in Antigua, government is offering a 1-month amnesty to foreigners who are in the country illegally. And you'll have your latest international news coming from the BBC.
Advertise with us on News Talk Radio Guyana 103.1 FM for best coverage on programs on motivation, beauty and health, parenting and relationships, knowing your rights, and a variety of enlightening content, and get value for your money. Call our helpful staff today on 223-1056 or 223-1041 today.
Now for the news in detail. The construction of the first link of the Linden-Lethem Highway has moved one step closer to commencement, with Caribbean Development Bank, CDB, clearing the way for negotiations to start with a Brazilian company. Finance Minister Dr. Ashley Singh said the CDB on Thursday issued its no objection for negotiations to commence with the most responsive bidder, Construtora Quiros Galvão SA from Brazil, for the award of the Linden to Mabura Hill upgrade project. The cost is $190 million. The Linden to Mabura project will see the upgrading of the existing alignment to asphalic concrete at a cost of 122 kilometers, as well as the inclusion of 5 drainage structures. The Finance Ministry explained that the process leading to the award of that contract followed a stringent and transparent procurement process. After a thorough evaluation process involving engagements and consultations with the Caribbean Development Bank, consultant Mott MacDonald and other specialists, the bid by Construtora Quiros Galvão SA was determined as the most responsive bid. This indicates that bid fully complies with all environmental, social, health, and safety requirements. The CDB indicated its concurrence with the recommendation of the Guyanese Evaluation Committee and issued it no objection to commence negotiations with the winning bidder. This project will be the largest project ever funded by the Caribbean Development Bank and one of the most historic projects undertaken in Guyana. The Opposition, a Partnership for National Unity plus Alliance for Change, APNU plus AFC, says that billions of dollars worth of contracts are being awarded to blacklisted companies. APNU plus AFC parliamentarian David Patterson says although the Public Procurement Commission had barred several companies, contracts had been awarded to a number of companies.
Sir, despite being banned by the Public Procurement Commission, two contracts were awarded by the Central Housing and Planning Authorities, one of $890 million, sir, and one, sir, from Region 9 of $30 million, sir, to Vidal, they're a blacklisted company, Vidal. Additionally, contracts were awarded. They just awarded a contract for Milo. A Milo falls to China Railway Forest Group. Blacklisted companies are blacklisted for fraudulent practices.
The APNU plus AFC parliamentarian is also accusing the government of awarding contracts to close associates such as Queen's Atlantic. The Guyana government says it is conducting detailed studies of the Yellowtail well before approving a field development plan. This announcement was made by Natural Resources Minister President Baru during the ongoing budget debate.
We are in the process of reviewing the field development plan for the fourth development, the Yellowtail development, and I want to say that we are not taking things lightly. As a government, we have already engaged 2 different sets of international consultants to ensure that they review the field development plan for Yellowtail and to ensure that when a license, once approved, is granted, that it brings additional benefits to the people of Guyana. And there are safeguards in the license to ensure that our environment is protected and to ensure that people actually benefit from the oil and gas sector, Mr. Speaker.
Several environmental activists in Guyana have stated in court papers that an oil spill from Yellowtail will affect the chain of Caribbean islands. Vice President Baru Jagdeo says that once a new opposition leader is in place, the government will be ready to establish several constitutional commissions. With Mr. Joseph Harmon having resigned from the post of opposition leader, the People's National Congress Reform-led opposition coalition is continuing internal maneuvers for Mr. Aubrey Norton to become a parliamentarian and voted in as opposition leader.
Now we are in the process of electing a new leader of the opposition. So once that person is in place, we anticipate that by the end of February, we should have all of the commissions, the service commissions in place, right? So the president will consult with the leader of the opposition on the Judicial Service Commission and putting it back in place, the Public Service Commission, and the Teaching Service Commission.
He notes that already 4 names have been approved for the appointment of a Police Service Commission, with the next step being a motion to go to the National Assembly for approval. Vice President Jagdeo also remarks that the current internal politics of the coalition proves that then opposition leader Harmon had no real power to make decisions.
You'd recall several times I said that engaging with Mr. Harmon might be an exercise in futility, given that he may not have had a mandate from his party. And we were proven correct, that he never had a mandate from his party, although they had a very disappointed show and Mr. Norton was elected.
Mr. Jagdeo restates that the PNCR's recent internal elections only saw 1/3 of its delegates voting. Government says it wants a number of Guyana's election laws amended before local government elections are held. Vice President Baru Jagdeo says the response to the proposed amendments to the Representation of the People Act. Already, People's National Congress Reform leader Aubrey Norton has insisted that Region 4 will not be split up in a revised Representation of the People Act. But Mr. Jagdeo maintains that Region 4 will not be broken up into separate electoral districts.
In the last election, so they had the different tallies being done by the East Coast. We had results with the East Coast, East Bank, South Georgetown and North Georgetown because of large numbers. So they were tallying and giving subtotals for each of these 4 areas. All we're saying in the new law, not splitting up Region 4, all we're saying is that you should put, instead of having one RO responsible for the whole region, given the large number of votes, which are like East Coast or South Georgetown has maybe 3-4 times more votes than another region, some smaller regions, then put in separate individuals to run all of these places. So you're not splitting Region 4 up.
He hopes that the amended law will be in place for local government elections.
They will be crucial, we believe, for holding local government elections as a test run, because many of the measures that we are putting in place in that bill could then be implemented in the local government reform, which is greater predictability surrounding selection of people, training, the manuals, publication of the manuals, counting of results, publication of results, all of that.
Government also plans to amend the National Registration Act. The chairman of the Guyana Gold Board, Dr. Gobind Ganga, says a system of accountability has been put in place to prevent declaration of Venezuelan gold in Guyana. There has long been speculation that cheaper Venezuelan gold is being smuggled across the border to Guyana, where it is purchased at a lower price and sold to local gold dealers and the Gold Board. But Dr. Ganga says the Gold Board and the Guyana Geology and Mines Commission are working closely to put systems in place so that miners will have to properly account for gold being declared. He says if there's any suspicion, the board will examine factors such as the possible gold output of concessions with actual sales and revenue. At that point, Dr. Ganga says questions will be asked and miners will be asked to prove the source of the gold they are selling. A man who has been charged with possession of ammunition and firearm and robbery on the arms escaped from the Lusignan Prison yesterday. Police say that 18-year-old Kavin Singh of School Street Grove, East Bangdamarara, escaped from the Lusignan Prison virtual court compound while attending court. Investigators say that at about 9:30 hours yesterday, prison officer Danraj uplifted 7 inmates, including Mr. Singh, to attend court at Lusignan Prison. Singh and the other inmates were left in the custody of prison officer Rolwayne Payne. Prison officer Payne told police that at about 9:45 Singh, who was foot cuffed at the time, asked prison officer Payne to use the prisoner washroom, which is situated to the northwestern side of the court compound. Police say that permission was granted and Singh left and went to use the washroom. According to prison officer Payne, he left and went to the court office, leaving the prisoner in the washroom, and upon his return he went to the washroom and discovered Singh missing, hence an alarm was raised. Checks were made in the court compound and it was observed that eastern chain link fence of the court compound was detached from the post. Now for the news in the region. The Antigua and Barbuda government has decided to offer a 1-month amnesty to foreigners who are living illegally in that country. The announcement was made by Prime Minister Gaston Brown in his national budget address. He says many private and public sector projects to be implemented in 2022 will require additional labor if Antigua and Barbuda is secure the projected 8% growth rate. Mr. Brown says that to ensure that sufficient labor is available domestically, government will offer an amnesty to individuals living in Antigua and Barbuda whose status is not regularized. The trend over the years shows that as that country heads into a general election bid, the governing Antigua and Barbuda Labour Party, and the United Progressive Party takes steps to win the votes of foreigners who are residing there. They include Guyanese, Jamaicans, and nationals of Trinidad and Tobago. In the British Virgin Islands, 3rd District Representative Julian Fraser is predicting that Premier Andrew Faye will call an election before it is constitutionally due. The next general election is due early next year, but the veteran legislator said Faye's actions indicate that voters will not have to wait that long. BVI News reports that Mr. Fraser says that based on the things that Premier Faye is doing, he will call a snap election before August. Mr. Fraser says that the last election was February 25, 2019. He argued that political parties were going to start campaigning before the 4-year anniversary of that date. Commenting on the matter, 2nd District Representative and fellow opposition legislator Melvin Turnbull said that opposition members are committed to working together in the best interest of the people of the Virgin Islands, regardless of what this might mean after an election is called. And lastly, in the region, officials at the Dodds Prison in Barbados have confirmed a COVID-19 outbreak with more than 50 inmates and staffers so far testing positive for the virus. But Minister of Home Affairs and Information Wilfred Abrams said operations at the penal institution have not been significantly affected. Abrams said that the testing of prison officers who reported for duty earlier in the day resulted in the discovery of 5 cases that do not seem connected to the previous cluster of cases. He said a staff member who works in the prison's kitchen had tested positive for COVID-19, which resulted in the testing of all the associated inmates and staff between January 29 and 31. From that number, 18 male inmates tested positive on their first test, and a further 26 received positive results Wednesday from their second tests on Tuesday. The Barbadian Home Affairs Minister says that all of the COVID-19 positive inmates are stable and are isolated in the prison. He says all those who have been in contact with them have been quarantined. Abrahams said a decision was made to rapid test Wednesday's incoming shift of prison officers, and 5 positive results have been reported. Here now is your international news coming from the BBC.
News with Sue Montgomery. The Chinese President Xi Jinping has formally opened the Winter Olympics in a toned-down ceremony at the Bird's Nest Stadium in Beijing. The head of the International Olympic Committee, Thomas Bach, thanked China for making the Games happen in a time of COVID. Alex Capstick reports from the Olympic Park.
Beijing is the first city to host both versions of the Olympics, and just like the Summer Games in 2008, the award-winning filmmaker Zhang Yimou was put in charge of directing the opening ceremony. Just 3,000 participants this time, the cast without any stars and celebrities, made up mainly of students and school children. The colourful high-tech performance laid out on a surface made to look like a giant sheet of ice.
The event has been overshadowed by diplomatic boycott by several nations because of China's alleged human rights abuses in Xinjiang. Beijing has forbidden any protest by athletes. The Secretary-General of Amnesty International, Agnes Kellermar, accused China of abusing its appearance on the Olympic world stage.
This is an attempt to use the game to derail the attention away from its human rights record to what we call sport washing, to impose a global norm of censorship on everyone taking part into the game, and that should not be acceptable at all.
China's President Xi Jinping has given his support to Russia's security and foreign policy aims at a time when many in the West fear that President Putin is planning to invade Ukraine. China also gave its backing to the Russian demand that NATO halt its expansion. The two leaders met in Beijing before the opening ceremony, but President Xi's carefully worded remarks leave it unclear how much help Beijing would give Moscow if Russia invaded Ukraine. Shops and markets have begun a 3-day shutdown in the city of Bunia in the east of the Democratic Republic of Congo to protest about a lack of security. More than 50 displaced people near there were killed by rebels on Tuesday. A militia group is accused of attacking a camp for people who had fled their homes as a result of an inter-ethnic conflict. This report from Will Ross.
Just outside the Plen Savo camp, a funeral service has been held. In front of the mourners were long rows of coffins. The victims of Tuesday's brutal rebel attack have now been laid to rest. There's a lot of anger in eastern Congo's Ituri province, where people feel vulnerable. About 90 kilometres away from the camp is the city of Bunia. It's home to around 1 million people. Civil society activists there have called for a 3-day lockdown, and in response, almost all shops and services have closed. They want the Congolese military and the UN peacekeepers to do more to protect people from the dozens of armed groups in the area.
World News from the BBC. The UN says it's sending humanitarian aid to more than 20,000 Sudanese and South Sudanese refugees affected by clashes between armed groups and federal forces in the northwest of Ethiopia. Last month, 2 refugee camps were looted and torched. Violence in Ethiopia's Benishangul Gumuz region predates the ongoing war in the Tigray region, which began 15 months ago. Emergency workers in Morocco say they're hopeful they'll soon reach a 5-year-old boy who's been trapped for 4 days in a deep well. The country has been gripped by the rescue attempt. Mike Thompson reports.
5-year-old Rayan slid more than 30 metres down the well's very narrow shaft, just 25 centimetres across in places. Rescuers are digging a large hole parallel to it in an effort to reach the boy, all the time fearing the possibility of a landslide. Food, water and an oxygen mask have been lowered to Rayan, but it's not yet known if he is still alive.
A High Court judge in Belfast has ordered that checks on food and agricultural goods traded between the British mainland and Northern Ireland must remain in place until a judicial review next month. The ruling comes 2 days after a minister in the territory's devolved government ordered that the inspections be stopped, a move that's triggered a political crisis. The checks are part of the Brexit deal to prevent the return of a hard border on the island of Ireland. The Indian government has rejected a demand by the Tesla head Elon Musk for tax breaks for imported electric cars. A government official said current rules already allowed the import of partially built vehicles that can be completed in India with a lower tax levy. Indian media say a number of politicians have invited Tesla to set up in their local states. BBC News.
And that was your international news. Here now is a recap of the highlights. A Brazilian company has been selected to construct the first leg of the Linden to Lethem Highway. Guyana's surface commissions may be appointed by this month end when a new opposition leader is expected to be in place. And in the region, in Antigua, government is offering a 1-month amnesty to foreigners who are in the country illegally. And you had your latest international news coming from the BBC. And that was your major newscast. I am Jessica Daw.
This has been the news, compiled in the News Talk Radio newsroom. For ongoing updates, visit demerarawaves.com, and you can check facebook.com/demwaves and twitter.com